Hey kids, it's Old Man shouting at clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders show.
Hey GT, what are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey kids, welcome back to another episode of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% unbiased, completely impartial, and slightly bittersweet co-host, Old Man, shouting at clouds. Joining me this week, as usual, is GT.
Playoffs, baby, playoffs.
Yes, and MJ.
I am thrilled to announce that I still have to juggle 2 sports in October. Go Blue Jays.
Yes, so the Jays are still going?
Yes, they won last night, Game 7, so they're off to play the Dodgers.
Oh, so they've made it through the round. Yeah, I don't follow, of course, and last I heard it was 3-2. Again, they were down 3-2, so good for them. So is this the, what would they call it then, the conference finals or whatever?
This is the
next
World
one's
Series.
The series after this?
This is the World Series they're going to be playing starting on Friday.
Oh, this is the World Series they're in. Hey, well, go Jays.
First time since 93. Go.
Yeah, probably I'll probably have to watch again. Probably the first Jays game I've watched since 93.
There you go.
But this is funny. We have 2 people that don't care. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Or at least weren't following it. But I did say to my wife earlier, it will be a short podcast tonight. It won't be that long. We don't have much to talk about, just the games. And she said to me, oh no, MJ will want to talk about the Blue Jays. Don't worry.
It's not in the rundown, but you can be as creative as you want, MJ, getting all it in.
Well, just that they were down. And it looked like they were going to lose. And it was really sad. And then they got 2 guys on. And then George Springer came up and he's had a knee injury and he's been battling through and he looked pretty rough. And I was actually wondering why he was even still playing. And then he hit a 3-run shot and they went up. And then Hoffman, well, you guys don't care, but some people might care.
Yeah.
Jeff Hoffman's the closer this year, and he is, what's the word, streaky at best. So I think I lost 10 years of my life watching him try to close that game out, but they did it.
Well, good.
Yes.
Good. And then
That's
more to look forward
the Blue
to.
Jay report.
Yes. This has been your mini episode of the MBL Outsiders.
Yes.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I have some less great news to do because we've got to go to the fantasy update, and I'm afraid there's no joy in Mudville here. The Cinderella run is over. Took it right to the final, but Adam beat me 122.5 to 110.8. So congratulations to Adam Stewart from the Canadian Football Countdown. Well played. Myself, I'm kind of 2 minds because the emotional side of me is, people always say I'm way too hard on myself and you get a job done or you don't, and I didn't get the job done. So there's that part saying, yeah, came up short. From the more intellectual side, I do know that really, if you're going to be healthy, you don't worry too much about external competition. It's internal. How well are you doing? Are you doing the best you can? And I have to say, I'm not unhappy about the team I picked. In the end, it came down, we picked 4 of the same players, so those were out. And both of our lower cost players, we each had 2 lower cost players. I actually beat him by about a point or 2 on that. But in our flex, we both went running backs. And I thought Rankin would break a few long ones, and he didn't. And he had Dedrick Mills from Calgary. So, well played by Adam there.
I had Mills as my running back. I didn't pick Rankin this week. I just thought BC had been playing well enough that I didn't have him, and I was glad I didn't.
Yeah, well, it came down to I built the team so I had 15,000 picks my flex, and I could go with anybody that I wanted.
Right.
And I didn't feel great about any other receivers that I knew they were going to do well. since Oliveira was against the Saskatchewan defense, even though they had backups in, I thought I don't want to go that way. So it really came down to Butler, Mills, or
Right. So
made the wrong pick.
who was your number one running back then, if you use that as a flex?
Well, he was my flex because I'd already gone cheapo on my 2 running backs.
Oh, you went 2 cheaps. Okay, 2 cheaps.
I went cheap on both of them. I went with Mario Anderson because he was starting for Saskatchewan, which got me like 2.5 points, but Adam had him too, so that didn't hurt. And then I went with Horvath for BC, hoping he'd get in, and he did pop in and picked up about 5.3 points or something. So anyway, you said you went with Mills. How did you do overall?
I did okay. I was 113.6 or something in that range. I had Rourke as my captain, so that worked out well. Yeah. I had Mills as my running back. I went with Choquette as my cheapie because my big concern going into the week was who was going to play the entire game. Because that's the reason I didn't pick some guys, because I felt like, they're not even going to play the whole game probably, depending on how it plays out. So that's the reason I went with Rourke rather than Vernon Adams. And I kind of, that paid off to some extent. And so I didn't go with a lot of Saskatchewan guys because I felt like, they were going to be playing B and C players. But my receivers I didn't do so great with receivers. That's where I lost it. So.
Yeah. Well, and you still did better than I did there overall. So not so bad. How about you?
I had 155.6.
Oh my God. See, you guys have got to get in the league next year. You're kicking all our butts every week. Wow. So you had Nathan.
I had the Stamps defense. I had Alexander as my captain. And my running backs, I picked Horvath and Scott. And then I had Mack and Hatcher as my receivers, and Butler was my flex.
I see where the points came from. An excellent lineup.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I will just say I cannot take all the credit because my kid helps me pick these every week. So.
Hey,
that's why they're always Alouette heavy.
You're allowed to phone a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's that. Like I said, that's great. You guys will really have to think about next year joining the actual podcast league, and maybe the two of you'll be in the final with scores like that.
Yeah, I looked at Alexander, but he was one of those guys that I thought he's not going to play the whole game. So I didn't take him for that. That was one of, and it was like, he can rack up a lot of yards, but I thought he'd play the first half at best. I didn't think he was going to play the whole game.
I was much like you. Like I picked the Ottawa defense because they were cheapest. And then other than that, everybody I had, I think, let me think through this a little bit. Yeah, because I had Horvath in there, and then I had Hatcher and McGinnis in. And so by the time Saturday night or Friday night was done, I had only my defense left to play. And it was like you said, I was trying to go for the teams that had something to play for. Anyway, that's done for this year. I will, if anybody cares, I will do one more Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy this Friday to finish off the season and just let things go. But hey, like I said, everybody, thanks to all of the league that played, it was a lot of fun. And I had to get the Twitter account for X or whatever it is for communication. So there's been some good trash talking there. Lots of fun. But anyway, moving on, because we don't have a lot of news items. So, MJ, you were saying that the Alouettes did some re-signings.
So good news for Alouette fans. The Alouettes have re-signed Jason Moss and Danny Machocha for 2-year extensions. Danny Machocha's been there since 2020. And honestly, I thought Jason Moss he's only been there since 2023. I have surely thought he would have been there just as long, but he hasn't. So, this franchise, they are doing some great things there. We can talk about it in the game, but they've sent 7 busloads of people to Ottawa for that game. And honestly, it sounded like a home game because they all had their air horns.
Yes.
But this is great news for Alouettes. And so good job, Danny and Jason. They're just, they're doing great things.
Yeah, I see that. I thought that I read that Machocha's there through 29 and Moss is through 28. So that's both.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, those are both really good signings. And it's funny because when Machocha got hired, I remember back on the Alouettes fan site, and it was like nobody wanted him. They felt like he had stabbed the previous regime and had been backhanding and doing everything while he was on the radio while he was at University of Montreal, and just, everything in the background to try to get the job. And now he's turned out to be, have done a really, really good job. So yeah, it's that they're both important signs. I was also impressed that it came the week after Saskatchewan lined theirs up. So the best 2-run organizations right now and the best 2 teams probably in the league have both signed their GM and their coach to extensions and are pretty set in both of those places for the next few years. So that shows some stability and why those teams are where they are right now.
Definitely. The continuity helps, and it is hard to get somebody good. So when you find them, hold on to them. And what else did we... Right, you were mentioning the Herm Harrison Award, GT.
Yeah, I'm sure that each team has an award that's like this, but of course, because I'm on the stamp site regularly, the Herm Harrison Award in Calgary is actually voted by the players. So this is an award given by the peers. So it's really important in Calgary to whoever wins it. And it's given to the player that exudes and shows leadership both on and off the field, as well as charitable works throughout the city. And so it's really a prestige and a work of pride for the team. And to get Moncrief to win it this year, I thought was pretty impressive, because it's usually won by guys that have been there a few years, that have had time to establish themselves in the city as well as on the team as a leader. And for him to come in this first year and be able to do all of that, I thought pretty impressive. And, like he even said in his, in the interview that he did, 2 years ago, everybody said I was done. Like they thought I was done.
Mm-hmm.
And this means a lot to me. He said this means a lot to him because of that and the fact that, the team took a chance on him, and then he decided to really go for it and to step up this year. So, and I think he has both on the field for sure, and it looks like he has off the field too. And as I said at the beginning, I would assume most teams have this type of award. I just don't know what the other ones are. So if anybody can find out and wants to tell us, that'd be great.
Okay. You're probably right. I'm just not sure. And along those same lines, I'm pulling a little bit of an audible here. MJ was next up on the show run, but just before we went to air, I found something else that's similar to this that I thought we might as well talk about. The awards for basically the stuff above and beyond the on-field play. Last week, we talked about the Jake Godar nominees, and that's the award goes. It's for Canadian players and the same sort of criteria. And this week, they've announced the Tom Pate Award, which is, again, very similar, but available or open to any player in the league. So they say that it's presented annually in recognition of outstanding sportsmanship, dedication to and significant contribution to teams, community, and the Players Association. So that they've got this year's nominees out, and I think, again, this one will be given out at the awards just before the Grey Cup, but I'll run through them. West to East again. BC Lions was Andrew Pearson. Calgary Stampeders, Dominique Grimes. Edmonton Elks was Niles Morgan. The Riders was Micah Johnson. The Bombers had Brady Oliveira. Tiger Cats was Kenny Lawler. Argonauts was Anthony Lanier III, or the second, sorry. Ottawa Redblacks was Tyrone Verde, and Jeffrey Canton-Arcou for the Montreal Alouettes. So good luck to them all. And again, these rewards are nice to see. It's good to see people giving back. Now MJ's good. Oh, sorry. Just one quick thing there. You mentioned it was Arcou, Canton-Arcou in Montreal. Was he not the nominee last week as well out of Montreal? He was. I believe he was the Tom Pate one. He's the only one that I recognize there. I don't think Brady was the Godar one as well. But yeah.
So that's pretty impressive that he's up for, both the Godar and the Pate. That's pretty impressive.
Yes, and especially with the way he plays. He played, that was not the most awe-inspiring game on the weekend, but he was playing well in it. But moving on from there, MJ is going to mention, too, that basically we're 4 weeks before the Grey Cup, and we know who's playing at halftime. I don't pay attention to music in the last 40 years, so I have no idea how relevant it is. I'll let MJ talk to you.
Wow. This is funny because they did the announcement on E-Talk And they were like, it's on Crave and CTV. And I was like, I don't have cable. I don't have. It's like, someone tell me who it is when you find out. So big announcement that Machine Gun Kelly is the halftime show. I'm going to try and say nice things. I honestly don't know a lot about him. These are the things I know about Machine Gun Kelly. Here we go. Ready? 1. He called Eminem's underage daughter hot, and Eminem buried him in a rap when Machine Gun Kelly was trying to be a rapper. So much so that he flipped over to pop and just like left an entire genre. And he's Megan Fox's boyfriend. They have a baby together.
I'm just going to jump in because I got to say that's, of all these people talking about it, that's the one thing that I hear consistently. Well, and he must be good because he's going out with Megan Fox. Unless she's going to be up performing with him, I don't see the value of that.
I mean, musical taste is a preference, and I think he's popular, except maybe not great at music. But I mean, it's a big get for the CFL. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, the first thing I thought was, is that the guy that's been washing the floor at the car wash all season in the commercial? And it is.
Okay.
As they come out of or come back into the commercials, that guy that's doing the dance with the broom at the car wash or whatever it is, that's him. I was told. I was like, oh, okay. I thought I was pretty good that I recognized that much at least. Secondly, I was like, okay, this is funny, but I texted my 35-year-old, my youngest, and she said, I don't know who he is by his music. I only know who he is by who he dates. So there's that part. And I thought, okay, so that's that. And then I thought, that I texted her back. Yeah. So this is the very first time that I can honestly say I've never heard of the halftime act. And so I'm officially old, officially hit the mark where it doesn't matter anymore. All the plus stuff that they've been playing is pure pop music. Again, it's like going back to when people were really dismissive of the Black Eyed Peas, and yet the Black Eyed Peas was the biggest pop band, crossover band in the world at the time. This is the same sort of idea. You don't know who they are, but it doesn't mean they're not selling a lot of music. And so somebody's watching and will be interested in watching to find out what it looks like. And yeah, I'll watch. I always watch. So there you go.
Yeah, well, I will be there. I doubt that I'll watch. The halftime is usually my chance to chat with some people that we have over and stuff like that. But yeah, mine was the same. I honestly, I heard the announcement. Who? I hope he's a good choice from the people that they're trying to attract to the game, because they don't need us to be attracted to it. We're already there. So.
Well, if you mean at the game itself, no, this will be, I think this is going to be loudly received at the game as one of the poorer selections. I think the stadium will empty out. I think it will be the typical force all the dance teams out to the front of the stage and no one else will care. And there will be tons of shots of the dance teams because they won't be able to show the audience getting into it. But it will be good for television probably, and it will be good for people, whoever they're trying to attract on television, because as somebody else said in one of the other pods, halftime is a television event. It's not about the game at all. So it doesn't really matter. The people that are at the game, very rarely do they actually stay to watch it. Anyways, that's their 15-minute beer break.
Next year, I'm going to pay more attention to whose commercials I have to listen to all year.
Yeah.
Because it was between him or like the I want to get drunk right now guy, right? Like those were our choice. Those were the choices.
Well, then they made the right choice.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so exactly. And like I said, that was what I was trying to say. I hope it's someone that'll bring the attention to the league that wouldn't normally be there. I have no idea. But anyway, that's about the news. So just before we hop into the games, I'm just going to do my beg break a little bit early here. Please, if you're watching this, if you're getting anything out of it, hit the subscribe button for us on YouTube, on the podcatchers, on iTunes, and all the rest of that. It really helps us out. We're starting to see the numbers grow up there. We're getting close to what our kind of goal was for the season, so that's good. And plus, likes and comments are easy, and we started getting more, including, this is where I said to you, GT, that don't know how much you'll follow up on it, but at Strix Phases was the username on YouTube that came in saying, wow, a printer jersey. Wrong team, unfortunately, but still pretty amazing. I may have to think about putting a bet in and give the MJs a run for their money. So who knows? You may.
So I will have to look for that comment on the YouTube broadcast from last week and see what's happened there. I will do that. I will follow up. That's great. That's great. I just want to finish off one thing with the Machine Gun Kelly halftime thing.
Okay.
Because you mentioned it earlier, MJ, that, it came out earlier in the day on that, I guess it was Wednesday or Thursday, that it was going to be announced, a big announcement coming on ET tonight, on CTV and wherever else you watch it and so on, Crave, etc. And so the first time in I don't know how many years, I decided I'd watch it. I'd see if see who it is. I was interested to find out. It was one of the worst announcements I've seen. It was It was like 30 seconds in amongst the fashion show for the underwear girls, and then it was on to some woman that's selling her book, and then, oh, by the way, the CFL has got MGK, and then Machine Gun Kelly, and then it was next. And I thought, this is supposed to be your big announcement. This wasn't. Now they obviously sent it out as a press release as well because it was then on all the news stuff. I was like, if this is your partner on CTV, TSN, and this is supposed to be the entertainment, you could have at least got them to do a bit better than that. I really was disappointed in the way they handled the announcement on that particular show.
I got to agree that they've not been good on execution lately on any of this stuff. I don't get it. And I know I'm living up to the name, the old man shouting at clouds, but please put half the effort you put into making up new rules into actually marketing what you've got, and who knows what could happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All righty. But enough of that. That's my negative mini rant for today. We'll go on to the games, and I'll take the first one because it was Saskatchewan 16 at Winnipeg 17, and there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. It was.
I've got pages.
Oh, do you? Okay, good. Well, I'll let you take most of them because I noticed. I noticed that basically it was Winnipeg starters playing the Saskatchewan preseason lineup and winning on a walk-off field goal. I don't know what that says. Is Winnipeg fallen that far? Is Saskatchewan depth that good? I don't know, but it wasn't an terribly exciting game. The second half especially was listless. They went with Mayer for 3 quarters from Saskatchewan and then put Cohen in for the last quarter, and Winnipeg had their starters in and still just couldn't seem to go very far. To me, the best thing about this whole game was the ad they did for World Vision, where they talked about Brady Oliveira and Sean Bain Jr. going to Africa in the offseason and working with providing wells and whatnot, which was a real good feel-good story. But that was the best part of the game. How about you guys? Anything more than that to say?
I have two notes. One, the Bombers are in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, they are in trouble. And there was one touchdown each in the first quarter, then field goals and punts, and that was it. So I only watched the highlight package from this, and I'm actually quite happy I didn't spend my Friday night watching this.
It's the time of football we're in, yeah.
There was 5 teams this weekend, guys. There was 5 teams with had a QB as their top rusher. So I'm not sure what was going on with running backs this weekend, but what a mess.
Unfortunately, Mills wasn't one of those. Damn it.
No, or Butler.
Well,
although Butler and Rourke did tie.
I have a question because I couldn't figure. I joined the game with 7 minutes left in the first quarter. It was already 7 all, so I missed the first quarter. Saskatchewan was just about to kick a field goal to make it 10-7 at that point. That's where I joined the game. And then I left the game as the BC game started because we're into that weird part where the games overlap by half an hour. So I missed the end of the game, and I didn't feel like I missed anything. So my only burning question is, what was with the purple jerseys that the Bombers coaching staff was wearing? Did they explain those at all? Like,
Not that I heard.
I didn't understand it. I couldn't figure out what it was because a lot of players and a lot of equipment people had the pink for the pink power for the breast cancer awareness. I saw a lot of that.
It was for World Mental Health Day.
Oh, was it? Okay, good.
Well done. All right. Well, that,
Yeah.
you know,
Even better done if we know what it was about.
Most
Right.
specifically for Rett syndrome awareness.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what
Yes.
they were up to.
Okay, if they had broadcast that earlier in the game, I missed the first few minutes. Okay, it wasn't just some weird thing. Yeah, other than that, because it was that weird a game, it could have been for the Bombers. They were that bad. They could have just got their colors wrong. They did everything else wrong. That was just one of the worst football games I've watched the team play in I don't know how long. They just stumbled and bumbled their way through it. At one point, I said, I actually swore. I said, Jake Maier's going to win another one. He's doing absolutely nothing. This is a perfect Jake Maier game. He's not thrown past more than 7 yards. He's done absolutely nothing. And somehow he's going to get credit for a win in this game. So thankfully he didn't. But I was just like, that's how bad I thought the Bombers were. They were just horrible. Just horrible.
But they played horrible and won against somebody who passed 400 yards. Like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah. It was a very bizarre game. And Winnipeg seemed lifeless and just not like a team fighting for their playoff lives. And even coaching decisions. Like there was one I think late in the second quarter where they were third and about 3 yards. And they put Strebler in to try and run a sneak on it that doesn't get close.
That was brutal.
They did not get it. And that's how they seem to be going at it. I don't know that they would have won if Saskatchewan had left Maier in the whole time because he's not great, but he was starting to warm up. They did mention that just before he got pulled, he was 11 straight completions. So left him and Riders might have won that, but it was obviously more important to see what the players could do. So I don't object.
Just before I left the game, they said that Zach had 12 yards passing in the second half. So that was midway through the fourth quarter. He had 12 yards passing in the second half. That's how bad.
And by then, all the backups were in the secondary and everything. If they're the only starters that were playing was because there was no backups left to put in for them.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. There was some goofy stuff. There really was. There's just too much to talk about to replay everyone, but it was just a complete cluster. Cluster.
Yes. And the other thing I'll start throwing quick, it was, I'm not sure what to think of Saskatchewan's kicking game because Lawther missed one again, but okay, so you'll get that. But their new punter, he's a Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, he put 2 punts out of bounds inside the 5-yard line, which were absolutely fantastic. And then he ends up punting where it's going to go to the 30, 35-yard line, and he lands it right in the middle of the field. So the returner's got whatever go he wants. It's just, I don't know how you can be that inconsistent.
I was just going to say, that's been the issue in Riderville all year, and it continues to be. So we'll see if kicking, when it gets colder too, that ball's going to feel different coming off of your foot. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, and to tell you, like I said, the punting scares me more than the place kicking even. Because you can kind of work around the place kicking, but if your punting isn't consistent, that's when you end up with something like you get pinned down on your own one and you figure, I've got to get some yardage behind you, and you manage to get out to the 25 or 30 and everything's good, and then your punter shanks 15 yards and you're in the same bad spot. That's the stuff I'm afraid of. Anyway, MJ, we didn't give you a chance to jump in yet.
Just that the Bombers are in trouble.
Yeah.
And the Riders special teams coordinator.
Yeah, they... I will say that this does look like it's trending towards where there's at least the possibility of Winnipeg. Looks like they're going to end up in the playoffs going through the East. So there could be a Saskatchewan-Winnipeg breakup in Winnipeg, which would be all that the Heartland could ever wish for.
I swear to God, if the Bombers somehow manage to win like these kind of games, they manage to beat out Hamilton and Montreal, stranger things have happened.
I swear, if they manage to beat out Hamilton and Montreal, there's going to be a lot of people losing a lot of money. Because
Yes.
I don't think the odds of that are going to be very likely.
Yes. Well, I'm here for it for the CFL chaos, and if nothing else, just to hear the raging debate the week before the game about who should have the home team dressing rooms.
Okay, well, it's not going to happen. So
No,
we'll
it's
just
not. Okay. I think that's been talked about longer than it needed to be, to tell you the truth. And frankly, none of the games this weekend were really great at all. It's I thought the BC Edmonton one had a lot more potential, but why don't you tell us about that, MJ? Edmonton 24 at BC 37.
Right. So you got, in full disclosure, I was at a concert on Friday night, so I got home for 6 minutes left in the fourth this game, but this just comes down to whether Elks can get Rankin going or not, and they are going to live and die by Rankin. Rankin had 36 yards rushing and 35 yards receiving. Cody outrushed him again. So good job, BC defense. You had a plan, and the Elks offense seemingly cannot scheme anything else. If Rankin doesn't running, they cannot figure out any other way to do anything. Bark had a 70-yard run.
Yes.
What?
Yep.
This guy's just going to do
Impressive.
everything. After the game, it was so funny. After the game, he's like, I have a newfound respect for everyone who does the waggle, because he said he was gassed after running that far. But just the Lions are just ticking along just nicely. Hatcher had a really great game. Butler had a pretty good game. Rourke had a great game. Then so ends their playoff hopes. Had to text my mom condolences, and she's just like, yeah, that's how it goes. And I'm like, right. So I don't know. Cody's contract's up, right? So we'll see what they do next year, but you just never know. Meanwhile, Tre's just living his best clean Jersey life, and that's about it for the Elks.
Yeah, there's going to be some stuff there for them to sort out in the off season. I got to say, to me, this one, I don't think the way it turned out that the Elk would have won anyway, but I think the loss can be very much put down to a decision the coach had kind of talked himself into. The commentators were saying how Killam had said to them, and he had emphasized that they might have to make some different decisions than you would normally make in a game. They might have to do something a little bit wild to get the win. And they didn't really do anything too much different in the first half. In the second half, they ended up, BC got a pick six for a touchdown to go up by 7 points. And on their following drive, the Elks got down to, I think, about the BC 50 or so, 3rd and 12. And instead of punting for field position and keeping it going that way, they decided to go for the 3rd and 12. Didn't make that first down, and it just seemed to take the wind out of the sails of their team. BC came and scored another quick touchdown, and I felt like it was over. And I feel like without that decision, they could have stayed in it a lot longer. And if you look at some of the games Rankin's been in this year, it's been the late third, fourth quarter that he suddenly starts breaking those long runs. So without Killam shooting themselves in the foot, in my opinion, they might have had a chance to win that.
Yeah, it felt to me like in the beginning, Edmonton actually had a pretty good shot. They came out and they played a pretty strong 28 and a half minutes of the first half, and were actually winning at that point in time, 10-2. I was saying, BC's got to score before. They got to get some points before the half, or else this game could get run away by Edmonton if they get on a bit of a roll. They feel like it. It felt like that. And then all of a sudden, it just, because BC was missing, it was almost like, not like Winnipeg. They were not like terrible, but they were just missing, and they weren't clicking quite right. Passes were just overthrown, just underthrown. Guys were dropping balls. It just wasn't going on. But then it was like Nathan just went, yeah, okay, enough of this. And with a minute and a half left, drove the ball all the way down the field, scored the touchdown, scored the 2-point conversion, and all of a sudden it's tied at half. They came out in the second half and just went enough, and just and it was over. They just did everything right in the second half. The time of possession in the first half was like 21 and a half minutes for Edmonton, and like 9 minutes or something like that for BC. It was crazy. It really was how much they controlled the game, and yet it was tied at halftime, and that tells you what's going on. And Cody threw 3 interceptions. They kept saying his ties his number in the last number of games or whatever. He hadn't thrown one in 175 passes or something. And then he threw 3 in the second half. They were definitely trying to do what they could, but every time they got close, BC responded. They got down, they scored a touchdown to get it within 10. BC just scored 2 more to put it up by 21. It wasn't like, it really was. They weren't playing with them, but they definitely were the better team, and it showed. BC looks really good right now. I must say, earlier in the year when I was not on the bandwagon and I thought they were, pretty suspect, and, we were all waiting for Benavides to get fired, et cetera, that defense has really come around, and they're now looking pretty darn good. They're a team to worry about. They're definitely a team to worry about. The only thing they have to worry about is can Nathan play in the cold? He has not proven so far he can play in the cold in November. So that's the biggest test BC will have.
Yeah, I'd give you that. Plus, I think there is something to the point that their defense looks like it's playing a lot better lately, but it's been a while since they've played a real powerhouse sort of team. So is the defense that much better, or is it the competition that they've been having, or a combination? I've got 2 things to mention just officiating-wise. One, I really, really steams my clams that they seem to have the replay center jump in on every offside or possible illegal procedure penalty, every holding one. We've got to have about a 30-40 second delay while the replay center confirms what was seen on the field. And yet this last week in this game here and in the Saskatchewan game against Toronto a week ago, there were 2 just absolutely egregious spots that took away 2 or 3 yards, should have been first downs and weren't, and crickets from the replay center.
Yeah.
In both cases, the coaches had to throw a challenge flag and won the challenge. So if you're the replay center that's supposed to be in looking after these games and making sure they're fair, what the hell is the criteria when you ignore obvious things?
Yeah, I don't know whether they were on a bathroom break or what, but they were not looking there, because they should have just called that one in the BC game, Edmonton. That was a complete fiasco. Fiasco. It wasn't inches. It was yards. It was ridiculous.
And like I said, 2 weeks in a row, the officiating hasn't been great. But I also noticed, though, that I like Ben Major as a ref. I think he does a great job reffing. I love his communication. And he took on a little bit of a new quirk this weekend. He was checking with the audience on the penalties. There was about 3 of them where it was, especially if it was a longer explanation, like, so the call is that the player was down by contact and it's the BC ball. Okay, and that okay was after. You mean we get a choice? And we say, no, that's not okay.
Actually, no. Don't understand the mandate of the replay center.
I don't think anyone does.
understand the central mandate. I don't understand the criteria.
Yeah.
I don't understand. It was not just me. Did I miss a communication at the beginning of the year of when they said they were going to override, when they were going to jump in? It just seems like there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I mean, they talk about the fact that the officials will ask them to double check, and it seems like they're doing that on the wrong plays. But I've also seen stuff where I've heard them say, well, they'll only get involved if it's player safety. They won't affect the outcome of the game unless it's player safety.
Well,
but I've seen things where it's
true.
been like a close pass and it's called complete on the field, and then they come back and say, oh, no, that's incomplete. No calling for it to be reviewed. I don't know if anybody in the league, in the replay center, I don't know if anybody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
I'm infuriated as a fan. Can you imagine how the players and coaches feel?
Well, and I've got another big question about this next game for the officiating. So more to talk about here, or do we jump on to Montreal and Ottawa?
No, we can go to Montreal.
We go Montreal,
Okay,
Ottawa.
so Montreal and Ottawa. Montreal 39, Ottawa 28. A lot that we can talk about with the game through it, but the one for me was a big play was a block punt by Montreal. The way the play turned out, the block came right up the middle. He did get the ball, blocked it, and I think it went about the line of scrimmage, but went through the ball and just hammered the kicker. And
Yeah,
at
I
the
thought
start of
that-
last season, they made a big deal of the fact that the rule had changed and you could not contact the kicker even if you had touched the ball anymore. That didn't absolve you. So unless they've changed it again and it's been quiet and we just weren't told, why I cannot understand why that's so obvious to the officials, and you got the replay center and everybody. Why are you not calling that penalty?
Yeah, I thought the same thing on that. I was like, did I miss something here? Because that sure is contacting the kicker as far as I know.
Yeah. In fact, I think that would have been roughing from what I saw. But
Yeah.
anyway, there wasn't a lot more to this other than some excitement early when Alexander got sacked and hurt his elbow a couple of times, but then came back and looked to be okay.
And TSN kept panning to McLeod Bethel Thompson on the sideline.
Yes. Yeah, he got to do some warm-up throws. He
Yeah.
didn't actually get in the game.
He looked like he also had an elbow brace on, though. So
Yes, he did.
yeah.
You know, he was in the 6th game because of a bad elbow. So,
Oh, that's right. Yes.
yes. And the other comment about this game, and again, it's probably the officiating stuff, but it is amazing the calls that go against the people get called roughing the passer against Zach. That doesn't happen for anybody else, because there were plays in this game where it was incidental stuff, but hits up on sacks or on hits after as the throw's going out, there were at least 3 or 4 where one part or another got up and touched the helmets of the quarterbacks, and yeah, it's just football. But you know that if that had been Zach, and O'Shea would be screaming his head off, and somehow they get that stuff. I don't know. Why don't you tell us what you thought about sort of the flow of the game? Because I haven't said much other than that Ottawa lost, and I didn't like the officiating.
I thought a couple things. I thought number one, that Adams looked like he should have been playing more. He's going to start again, as far as I know, this week in Hamilton. So if he wins, on the off chance he wins, Ottawa fans are going to lose their minds, because it will be like, okay, so he's now played 2 games in a row and looks like he's a winner. Why hasn't he played even more all season long? And he did look pretty decent. He was throwing the ball with some zip. He played with enthusiasm. He made some smart decisions. Sure, he had 3 interceptions, but 2 of them weren't his fault. One of them was a tip ball, and the other one, Hardy should have hung on to it when it was in his hands, and then it was taken out and it was classified as an interception. So those really shouldn't have counted. And I just thought he kind of played well. And then again, I wasn't sure why Davis Alexander was still in the game as late as he was. I couldn't figure that out. I know he's a tough, and I know that they need to get him reps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He hasn't played that much. He's still a rookie or first year guy starter and so on. But at this stage of the game, he could have played half or 3/4 at most of the game. I didn't think he had to play the whole game. I thought that was kind of weird. And then speaking of penalties and stuff that didn't get called, and I was quite upset when there was a play where Stanky, it was 1st and goal for Ottawa on their 6-yard line, and Montreal didn't have the proper personnel on the field. So Stanky came across the line and pushed the guard, and that gave Montreal a penalty. They got a penalty, but that gave them time to get their proper people on the field. I was okay with the first push on the guard. That was like to cause a penalty. That was a time stop. I got that. But then he went after that and he smacked the center while the center still wasn't aware. And that to me should have been
knocked
roughing.
him over, right?
Knocked him over. And that should have been roughing, and it should have been Ottawa should have got the ball on the 1st and 1 or on the 1-yard line. Instead, they were going from the 6. And on the very next play, Adams throws one of those interceptions that he should have, that was legitimate, at the 1 yard line to Montreal. They should not have been in a passing situation. They should have been on the 1 yard line. I don't know how he got away with the second push. That should have been two separate penalties, not one.
Yeah.
As far as I
Agreed.
was concerned, I was like, wow.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, and nobody talked about it on the broadcast. It was just like, oh well,
look how smart he's being. I'm like, oh well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There are times where I think he goes over the line.
What do I have? Adams was their top rusher. B, he had 44 pass attempts. That's not okay, Tommy Condell. He is a rookie QB, 44 pass attempts. Standback had 7 carries. Come on. That's ridiculous. I was not impressed about that. The Redblacks defense actually played really well. And they were the only of the 3. And then I have a note saying that the Redblacks ruined everything for themselves with dumb penalties. Because something good would really happen and they get down to the red zone and then they do something stupid and just wreck it. And I'm like, oh, this is infuriating. As I said, like that sounded like a home game for the Alouettes because the air horns traveled.
Yeah.
And they clearly snuck them all in. And you can't bring a sign into a stadium, but you can bring an air horn. What else I have? Maltos has got he's been working on some footwork. He's got a little kick that he does now. You see that?
Yeah,
he just like kicks it up. He's got a little flair there.
Yeah,
He's a flashy guy.
That tells you. I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in and tell you. That tells you you've got confidence in yourself when you do that in front of a stadium full of people.
Oh, yeah. This guy
just a little bend over. No, I've got this trick thing I can do.
I wonder what he's like to hang out with in real life because he's a pretty flashy guy on the field.
I think so.
And then, TSN panned to Gino Lewis looking sad a lot. That was their shady moment for them. They just panned to him looking sad. And then the greatest thing ever happened is that Milt had to wear the ugliest shirt in the world because he cheers for the Yankees.
Yes, that full Hawaiian thing.
Yes, and I'm Enoch had his sunnies on, and it was a whole thing. Oh, made me happy. Serves him right.
They played that through both games, so it was pretty good. That they kept it going through both games.
No, as far as Ottawa goes, I kind of agree with both of you. To me, Adams looked like a good quarterback who hasn't played in quite a while.
That's
and
right.
I do still think there's potential there. It'll be interesting to see the game this weekend. They kept shooting themselves in the foot on all 3 phases to some degree, but they tried to make a game of it at the end. They got themselves a touchdown and then went for an onside with over 5 minutes left that caught them off guard and got it, and another touchdown. And that put them within, 7 or 8 points, but they couldn't. The next onside didn't work, and it was kind of done from there. So it'll be interesting to see where Ottawa goes in the offseason with quarterbacks and what do they do. And, is Brown still going to be their guy? It's not been impressive between the injuries and when he has been playing this season. So I'd say it looks to me like he took a step back when he was playing this year from the level he'd been playing at the year before.
I still think that's coaching and injuries. Between those two things, I think without Tommy Condell and healthy, I still think he could be a really good quarterback. I would not give up on him yet. If I was them, I'd still keep him around. I think those 3 guys, are there, but you got to give that number 2 spot a real competition between Crum and Adams, and they should have done that some earlier this year. They just should have done it when the season was already out of control. They should have gone there.
The coaching thing maybe makes sense. Maybe it's just that he's just not comfortable with the offense at all, because it'd be one thing if he was missing throws and not being able to get the ball where it needs to go. But what I saw in the last half of the season when he's been in was not that. It was just bad reads, putting the ball up where it shouldn't have to be. And that is a mental thing. So hopefully another coach can come in and correct that for him. But it certainly looked different than what I've seen in the past.
Yeah, and he comes from a system again in Winnipeg where it was run first, pass second, and the run opened up the passing game. And I think that's when he's at his best. And he's got no running game because Condell won't run the ball, and his offensive line can't block worth a darn. That offensive line has been an issue in Ottawa longer than in BC, and that's hard to say. They need to fix that, and it doesn't matter who they are. Who the players are, they don't seem to scheme well, or they don't seem to be coached well on the offensive line.
I'm looking, and it doesn't even look like the Redblacks have a quarterback coach. They just literally have an offensive coordinator. So all Tommy Condell.
Sometimes you can get away with that if your OC is a former quarterback, but I don't think Condell is. I don't know. We'll see what they sort out. I hope something, because Lord knows the fans in Ottawa deserve better than this last almost a decade now. They had the ray of light last year, but
and things are a lot more fun when every team is competitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is, that's it. They've been competitive in a lot of the games that you wouldn't think they should be in, but it's so hard to say what it is. Maybe it's all the injuries, but every team has had injuries. So is it, lack of depth, or it's just they seem to make too many basic mistakes. And I think that they need to at least bring in a new OC and probably head coach, not Campbell, and see where they can go from there. I'd give the DC another year. Anyway, let's jump on again, because we're, like I said, not a lot to talk about in these games. So the next one is a game that was a absolutely fantastic world beater of a game for anyone that cheers for the Stampeders. And for the rest of us, yeah, maybe not so much. Toronto 13, Calgary 44. What was it like, JT?
It was great. It started off great, and it kept going great. It was great when it ended. Enough.
That sums it up. I have 2 notes, not even 3, and they're less than that. Pick 6 by Green to set the tone, and then kind of a lackluster game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought there was a few things there. First of all, yeah, Adrian Green, that pick 6 did set the tone. I agree with you 100%. And that was key. And it just started the game off perfectly for the defense that all of a sudden seems to have a bit of that early season swagger back, that defense again. So it's interesting. I don't know where it came from, or I don't know where it went for that little stretch, but it seems like Hutchins is back. Maybe that injury was a little more nagging than we thought it was, but certainly he was all over the field again this week. Now, it is against Toronto, and it is against Toronto's offensive line, which outside of Ottawa probably is the worst offensive line, but they still look pretty darn impressive all the way around. And VA was VA, like early season VA again. He was throwing darts. It was only 220 yards or whatever, 11 to 15 or something, the stat said, but they were beautiful balls. They really were. He was throwing them when he needed to, where he needed to, and it just looked really impressive. He got all 3 of his main receivers with touchdowns, plus between Rhymes, Jones, and Phil Pate, as well as Mills ran one in. So all the weapons were scoring, and then when they finally took him out, which everybody, including myself, was like, get him out of the game, you're up. Yeah. And then he got that little hip injury, and I'm like, ew, not good, but I think he'll be fine. By the end of it, it looked like he was walking it off. And I haven't seen anything on today's injury reports that say he won't be otherwise. But then Love came in, and I thought Love looked pretty good. And there was the one long bomb that he threw to Phil Pate. That was a thing of beauty. That was stand back in the middle of the pocket, like you do not see guys in the CFL do very much anymore. And he just went back 6 steps right in the middle of the field, right in the middle of the pocket, and rifled that down the field. That was pretty impressive. Maybe there's something there, and I think he'll get another half this weekend. I think he'll get probably at least the fourth quarter, and probably this whole second half, depending on the outcome of the game at that stage, to get him more ready in case in the playoffs. But yeah, overall, it looked great. Oh, and of course, with less than a minute left, here's the most ridiculous part of the game in a 44-7 game with less than a minute left. Dave challenges, and he wins, of all things, and he wins.
Yay, Dave!
It was crazy. I just started to laugh. It was just ridiculous. But yeah, on that hurdle, he challenged that and actually won. So that was pretty funny.
I will say you mentioned the long throw from Love, and yeah, that was well thrown, and the placement was perfect. You know, you couldn't have hit it any better than that. And something I didn't mention in the first game of the weekend, but I'll just give this to you as contrast for the Calgary backup quarterback making that throw right down the middle perfect this year, whereas the quarterback who was their starter last year, you said you missed the very start of the Saskatchewan-Winnipeg game. Well, the Saskatchewan touchdown came on the fact that Vavel fumbled the opening kickoff of the game, got it out to about the 40 and fumbled it. Saskatchewan recovered. Their first play, they ran a flea flicker, which Winnipeg bit on big time. And Mara had to just throw it down into the end zone to Robustelli. Managed to underthrow it so badly that it almost didn't get there. The DB got back in time but ran over Robustelli and took a PI call, and they ran it in from the one. So Calgary may have a better backup this year than they had a starter last year.
Like I said, the perfect Jake Mara game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was underthrown by like 5 yards. Okay. I got nothing else. How about you, MJ?
So just a few, these are all like this little like notes. And first, Shania Twain came out on Quick 6.
Oh, those are the two things I was going to mention too. Yeah. That was fun.
So I didn't know she was going to be at the game. So it was pretty exciting. And all my family talked about it. It was a huge deal. 2, the CFL Rabbit was there.
Rabbit was back.
And yeah, the CFL, he was out on the field making a play. So that was fun. Love it. I need to preface this by saying this penalty is a unicorn and never gets called. Hardly ever. Daggy took 2 intentional grounding penalties in a row. What? This never gets called in the CFL. Ever. So he took it 2 in a row. How embarrassing, sir. That was bad. And then my last little note is Daggy had ran into the Calgary sideline, and VA was over there giving him some props. He was giving him a pat on the end of the shoulder and send him back out. And that little interaction right there is everything I love about the CFL.
And VA especially.
Just little interactions like that on opposing teams, and just VA's just what a gem of a man. And the trifecta, CFL Rabbit, Shania Twain.
Yeah. They may have to dress a hamster up in a cowboy hat and have him ride that rabbit when they score the touchdowns instead of Quick 6. Yes. And I will say in Daggy's defense, yes, he's had 2 intentional grounding calls in a row, and those are extremely rare, but it was hard for him to get the ball back to the line of scrimmage when the throws were basically 6 or 7 Stampeders on top of him and his one hand sticking out of the pile somewhere going, eh.
Yeah. So I do want to mention one other thing. So early in the game, Charles Wiley. Can't remember his first name off the top of my head, but Wiley on Calgary goes in and gets a call on Daggy, exactly the same as VA last week that I was mad about in Montreal, where Daggy's helmet came off, and he was still behind the line of scrimmage, and it should have been a penalty 2 weeks ago, and it should have been a penalty this week, and this week it wasn't called either. And
I don't think it was a penalty this week, though.
No, it wasn't. That's my point.
I don't think it should have been. The VA one, yes. This one.
This, to me, it's this exact same thing. Your hands, if the guy's helmet comes off, your hand's got to be on his head, and he's a quarterback behind the line of scrimmage. And so to me, it was the exact same call. I felt the same way about it as I did 2 weeks ago. And again, there was no call on it. So maybe they just don't consider that,
Honestly, this one looked like Daggy didn't even have his helmet done up, because it just looked like the guy's forearm just kind of brushed his helmet.
Yeah. I don't know why that is. I don't know why, if guys aren't strapping them up right, or if it's a different helmet or something, but there certainly seems to have been a lot more. But my point is, again, if it's his arm brushing his helmet, if it's whatever it is, the rule is supposed to be if you contact the quarterback's head behind the line of scrimmage, that's a penalty. And that's if your helmet came off, the only way it comes off if somebody's touched it. So it should be a penalty. But 2 weeks ago and this week. So again, that inconsistency of what they're calling is just, I don't know. I don't get it.
And that's the thing to me is as far as I know, the rule is written, any contact, because they don't want to put in, that it has to be forceful contact, because you can't really tell that. So if that's the rule, then enforce it. If they're going to interpret it and enforce it the way that they've done on those two calls, I'm actually okay with that, because those aren't the kind of hits that are really going to be giving a quarterback head injury problems. They are kind of incidental to it. But the problem is what I was whining or bitching or whatever about earlier, that if it's Zach in there, he gets a call for that every time. And there's some of that a little bit with Bo, but there's not much with anybody else. So you can't have special rules for one guy because he's still playing and maybe has more head trouble than the others.
Yeah. And the difference was it at the end of the play? I'm trying to remember the exact circumstance, but there was no stoppage of play. The whistle didn't blow this time and stop the play. So it might have already been at the, an incomplete pass or something. So they weren't concerned about that. But, nonetheless.
Well, incomplete pass or not, it shouldn't matter. If you throw an interception and you're roughing the passer, the play gets overturned. So it should be the same
absolutely. Thing. I'm more talking about in this case about the whistle blowing the play dead. So it still is roughing, and it shouldn't happen. So it should have been called. It's not far as
I don't know. There was some stuff happening with Adams that I could not believe did not get called in that Ottawa Montreal. So who knows? Again, what's the replay center up to? I don't know.
It's difficult to see. And the thing with VA was that to me it looked like he came out and he was probably playing a little bit below the level that he did last week, which had been a good step back up. If I'm remembering this right, he had a couple of long throws that he was just off on a little bit. But once he got that sort of recalibrated, he was flying. And he looked as good as he was doing at any point this season. So, other than that slightly slower start, I think it looks good for Calgary going ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think they're set up to at least make it interesting again.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows where it's going to where they're all going to end up. I guess we can talk about that real quick here. Anything else to talk about? It, like I said, it's been a shorter review of the games, but this is the time of year we're in. We've got a lot of teams that are playing backups either to see what they've got for next year or to keep their starters healthy. All 4 games this weekend could have an impact on the playoffs, but we don't know if they'll still have an impact by the time that they get to them. The Montreal game will be meaningless if Hamilton wins. The BC Saskatchewan game will be meaningless if Edmonton somehow beats Calgary. At least we've got people that are trying to play for something, but I don't know that we're going to see fantastic football. Anything more, or do we jump into talking about these games then?
Sure, let's go to this week.
Okay, sure. What we got coming up? Okay, Ottawa at Hamilton, game number 1.
I want to pick Ottawa. I really want to pick Ottawa, but I'm not going to. No.
Come on, GT.
Yeah. I really do want to pick Ottawa. So if they win, I will say that I picked Ottawa.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Hamilton.
Yeah.
I am quite concerned about which Hamilton team shows up to play.
Yes.
I am very concerned. They are just wild. And Ottawa, like Adams, that was his first game. His second game, I'm thinking he's going to play a little bit better, especially if he's getting first team reps all week. But their defense is good. How is Hamilton going to? They're off the bye. Yeah, and you know what? I will pick Hamilton, but I think Ottawa's going to give them a good run for their money.
And I'm kind of with the both of you. I kind of want to pick Ottawa because it feels like the kind of thing, the way the season's gone, it could be, but I just don't believe that they can be mistake-free enough to do it. And Hamilton does have more to play for. I haven't checked injury reports this week, so I don't know who's in or who's out, but I don't know that the injury reports will tell us that anyway. Probably a lot of people out there, even though they're healthy. So, okay, so all three of us are going Hamilton on that one then. Then we go to the next one, Calgary at Edmonton.
I think this is the toughest game to pick. I think this is a closer game than most people would expect it to be. Edmonton's out of the playoffs, but they do not want to lose to Calgary. They do not want to at home. They do not want to go out with 2 losses after having that bit of a streak and having everybody enthusiastic. And if they go out with 2 losses, that kind of ruins that bit a bit. And they will be playing hard. A few guys are coming back. I saw in their injury report, Anderson's coming back, and a couple of other. This is I think this is a really tough one. This is almost like a pick 'em for me. I'm going to take Calgary, but I think this is going to be a really close game. I think this is going to be a really close, slug it out kind of game.
Right. I don't even know who. I have both of them circled because I think this is like Edmonton's last home game, but Calgary's back, BA's back, and I don't think they're going to play sitting back because they need to get clicking again. But man, Edmonton's beat them bad twice, huh?
Once. Calgary took Labor Day. Calgary took Labor Day. Edmonton took the rematch, and they were almost the identical scores flip-flop.
That's right. Okay, sorry, right. So they've each blown each other out.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know. You go ahead, Oldman. I have to think about it.
Okay, well, I agree with you. This is a tough one to call because I do think it's going to be closer than, or it could be closer than what a lot of people would anticipate with the standings. And I think this is going to be a good test to show us where Calgary is going into the playoffs. If they win this one, doesn't even have to be like a convincing shutout win, but if they can take this one by over a field goal, I think they're in a really good spot going into the playoffs. If not, it'll tell us whether maybe these last couple of weeks against some weaker defenses has been a bit of a mirage again. So I do think Calgary's probably should win it. But like I said, I bet whatever I pick with Calgary this season, I think all but about 2 weeks, the outcome's gone. The game gone. Last week I picked Toronto and helped Calgary get a big blowout win. Maybe I'll help them again by picking Edmonton this week. Yeah, put some drama on the show here. So now it's MJ to get to decide who picks.
I am going to pick the Stamps, but I'm very unconfident in this. Sorry, Mom.
So how does the infamous last game of the season tie affect the playoff?
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about if Calgary wins, if Edmonton loses, et cetera, et cetera. What happens if they're a tie? Does that change anything in the playoffs at all? I don't think so.
I don't think so because it depends how the other games go. But
yeah, I would think that just means that it's as good as a loss for Calgary, right? It means that it settles down where Calgary's going to be third and BC's going to be second basis.
Yeah, actually, where it could affect is if Saskatchewan were to beat BC, because then the 1 point would give them 11 points 21 points. They'd be up to 10.5 games. Yeah.
So for total chaos sake, we go for the tie.
The tie, yeah, exactly.
There hasn't been one yet.
There's not been one yet.
Don't forget, I think it's a CFL rule. Ties have to include either Ottawa or Calgary. So they both have one more chance this weekend.
That's right. They both tie in separate games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to mess with it. Just to mess with.
I wouldn't put it past Hamilton for that to happen to them.
All right, then, yeah. So then the next one, which actually could be a little bit of a tougher one to pick too, because we don't know what's going to happen with Hamilton. So game 3 is Saturday, the early game, Montreal at Winnipeg. Now, if Hamilton loses, Montreal will have everything to play for and will go all out, I'm sure. But if Hamilton loses, then Montreal's can't go any higher than second. So do they sit people? Do they sit them out? And what does Winnipeg do? Because if they win it and BC loses, then I believe they've got the season series over BC, so they could knock them down to third, and we could go Calgary, Winnipeg, BC, or to fourth. I don't know. So there's lots of permutations here. But who's going to be playing for how much?
Based on what they did against Ottawa, I'm assuming Montreal is going to send all of their starters, and they're going to play them. So I'm taking Montreal, and I would take Montreal no matter what, given that fiasco that Winnipeg was involved in last.
But somehow, despite a fiasco, Winnipeg won.
Yes.
So, I am actually kind of concerned. Like, the Alouettes should have no problem. They should just steamroll this based on how the Bombers beat. Like, Drew Brown putting up 400 yards. Beat when Strebler had, like, 40 yards of passing. And they beat the Riders, but they didn't. Like, it's just, I don't understand. I'm going to take the Alouettes, but CFL is a weird thing.
I don't know that this game is quite as tough as the Calgary-Edmonton game to call. I think that Montreal will be out there with wanting to get a victory even if they're out of the playoffs, just to send a little bit of a message. I do think they're going to probably play Alexander for at least half the game, and all of that gives them a better opportunity than Winnipeg. So I'm going to pick Montreal on this one. And that takes us to our final one for the weekend and the season. The ultimate game of the season, BC at Saskatchewan. No indication of who's playing what, or they could actually end up with basically backups in there for both teams, because if somehow Edmonton beats Calgary on Friday night, then BC's got second place. So it could be a quarter each of Trevor and Nathan, and the rest of the game, Jeremiah Matholi against Jake
Mayer. Oh, let's hope so.
Well, we had that matchup earlier this year, and Saskatchewan won at that time.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I'm going to pick BC.
I think you're going to have to, like, pry Nathan off of that field, and I'm going to pick BC.
Yeah, it just depends on how much they decide, how much Saskatchewan decides to play players and for how long, how many of their starters and for how long. I feel like you, old man, where they'll probably get the first half and then make decisions from there. And I think BC will be doing the same. This could be, I don't know. I'm taking BC because it just feels like they're on a bit of a run. And Nathan has, been just so hot recently. So, I'm going with
Okay, so we've got them all there. Yeah, I know what they won't do, because it's what I would do. Everybody tells me my ideas are all way too wild for coaching. But if this turns out to be a game that BC needs to win, if Calgary wins, so BC needs to win to get for second place, and they've got their players out there and all playing, I'd go out and I would start with my backups, as I think I mentioned this last week. Saskatchewan, I'd play the first half with the backups and then come in and hopefully hold them to like a 10 or 14 points, and then put your starters in and see if you can come back and beat them that way. Because if you can't, well, you only had the starters in for half a game, and if you can, it's pretty demoralizing if they come up against you in the playoffs in 2 weeks. I'd take the shot at that. But what I expect is that not that. I expect that we'll see, for at least for them, probably a quarter at the least and a half at the most for any of their starters. And that'll depend too on how many they're still resting, because they are actually nicked up. I mean, They do have their they were mentioning in the game, the last two games they've started. Well, I guess, no, Johnson was in the game 2 games ago, but went out very early. So basically they've been without their 2,000-yard receivers for the last 2 games, and we're still sporting out 5-man crews that had been playing regular all year and were good, solid receivers. So they've got some depth there, but they also have, besides those receivers that might still be getting more rest, they've still got Sales in the back end, and they've got Lacumba and Ford in the back end that I don't think will be back to play this week. So it'll be interesting. But that's all our picks in the books. I guess by next week, I'm going to definitely have to do all of our tallies. I've been meaning to do this for about 3 weeks, go back and get the tallies up. So I'll come back next week with who did what on the show, which of us gets the bragging rights for Pick'em.
Okay.
And that pretty much takes us to the end. So any last shots, comments, closing remarks, and your social medias?
Well, the only thing that I forgot to mention, just when you're talking about secondaries and stuff, in the Calgary game, there was much to do, and I think it's kind of cool that it's the first time in maybe forever that there was 2 Canadian corners playing on the same team, and plus Onyeka as well. So they had 3, at halfback. So they had 3, and then they had a global in Divine Scott at safety. So they had quite the patchwork defensive backfield as well. So that's kind of cool. And it was, that's interesting. So other than that, that was the only other thing I thought I would mention before we sign off. And as always, you can get me at GT Barnum on Blue Sky. And I'm going to go check out the YouTube and see if we can drive up those dollars on the Casey Printers jersey.
We'll tell people right here. Anybody interested? What give them till Friday?
Why don't we give it? I don't know. Why don't we give it through the weekend in case some tie-cap angle?
Yeah, give me a deadline to beat my sister.
Okay.
So the season ends on Saturday night, so let's just give it right through to the season ends on at the end of the last game on Saturday night.
Okay, so the bids close on the final whistle.
As the whistle blows on the final game, that'll be the final thing. So that's it. That's what we're saying.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. Okay, MJ, what do you got to dazzle us with for your last closing out?
Well, World Series starts on Friday. And the Ticats are back playing after the bye. So it's going to be a fun weekend for me. Come join me on Blue Sky at Sports and Plans, and you can follow all my stressed posts about each of these
I've
games.
noticed you do a good job of posting during the games. I don't see them during the games because I've got that, as I think I've said to y'all before, I tape the games and watch them about 20 minutes afterwards so I can run them through. So I can't look at Blue Sky on the 55-yard Sky feed anymore because MJ's posting lies.
Sorry, not sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's great for people that can't see the game, but I doing a wonderful job of it there. Anyway, that's about it. I'm, of course, Oldman Shouting at Clouds. You can get me at Oldman Shouting at Clouds on Blue Sky. You can get the show on either X or Instagram as at the CFL Outsiders. I think that's about most of the contact information that we need there. And other than that, I already did my begging, so please remember to do all the things to help out the show. Other than that, let's hope that we get a fantastic, unbelievably exciting game of football, especially for the last weekend of the season. Or maybe more realistically, let's hope we get a few games that are close and hold our interest past the halftime. But the playoffs are just around the corner. Playoffs, baby, playoffs. Okay, that's it for now until next week. For MJ and GT, this is Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.